Hello, everyone. Happy New Year, and welcome to Institute of Global Professional, the leading online skills institute and the world. It is our pleasure to welcome you here in our 313th International Free Webinar. Thank you all for finding time and visiting today's webinar, and I hope you will stay with us till the end. My name is Juliet De La Torre from Cebu, Philippines. We are hoping that everyone will be associated with IGP as a global member. Continue to attend all our webinars, check in IGP, and recommend IGP to your friends and community. I am sure you will learn from the various webinars that we have. At any time, you can like and comment on our webinar, and don't forget to tag, share, and mention your friends and community. We believe that power is gained by sharing knowledge rather than accumulating it. So before we get started, let us learn more about IGP. Institute of Global Professionals is an educational institution that provides social work. We believe that improving skills is not effective just by receiving formal training. That's why we provide effective training and advice to create talented generations around the world. The IGP is a leading online institution for skills development with thousands of learners around the world. We organized our webinar training, offline and online courses by the best and trained speakers, coaches from all over the world to create the best learning platform to all of you. We hope that every webinar will help you grow personally and professionally. And we hope also that you will accompany us on this long journey. Let me remind you again, don't forget to share, tag, and comment your attachments because your attachments encourage us to do better to provide quality services to all of you. Now, let's start our program with IGP's reminder. Feed your skills, innovate, inspire, impact. Today is presenting to you our 310th webinar entitled Language Data Collection, Research Method and Techniques with our speaker from India, Mam Diveka Sharma. So without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker for today's session, Mam Divika Sharma. She is a research scholar from Shrimata Vaishno Devi University, Jammu and Kashmir, India. She also has an international publications and is presently working on the narratological study of Dogri folktale. Once again, let us all welcome our speaker for tonight, Dr. Mom Diveka Sharma. Let's give her a round of applause virtually. Hello again.
Hello, ma'am.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for this introduction. I
Hello,
guess,
Mom.
hello, ma'am. How are you?
I'm
We
fine.
are all,
Welcome to IGP.
thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. Without much ado, I'll be sharing the screen first of all with all of you.
Yes, Mom.
I hope it is visible to all.
Yeah, we're waiting, Mom.
Is it visible?
Not yet, Mom.
Oh, okay. I'll share it again. Now?
Okay, Mom. That's it. We see it
Okay. Thank you so
already.
much. Okay. Thank you so much. So, good evening, everybody. My name is Devika, and we have all gathered up here to talk upon this topic that I'm going to discuss today, which says language data collection, research methods and techniques. So before I start with this PPT, I'd first like to introduce you with the topic itself and what is the need of this collection. So as we all know, data collection is of various types. All across the world, we have so many of the people who are working in different fields, irrespective of any of the field of research, they are collecting data. So we need data for the quality, for introducing something, for proving something, for giving answers to something. So here also we'll be discussing about the type of data collection which includes the language. Now, language is important to us. All of us know we use language to communicate to the another being. Even if the person cannot use the proper words or phrases, for the specially abled people, we have sign languages. So, irrespective of any type of languages, we all have this medium of connecting with other people, which includes language. Now, what happens when this language is lost? There are so many of the researches that are going on in respect to these languages, but what happens at the end is that nobody knows what to do with the language data. Even if you're accumulating all these data across the world, say in your own native language or somebody else's language by using the data, you lack at this position where you do not know what to do with this data now. So, when we talk about language and when we talk about the death of language, it means we are losing this vital part of our culture, we're losing this vital part of our ethics, traditions, and I'd say we lose this part of our brain, which was specially abled to, use a special part of our brain where where we had this capability of understanding and using it in a particular way. But with the death of this particular language, we no more are in this situation to use it. So today we are going to discuss about the language data collection. How can we go to the field or other measures that we can take to collect the data all across the fields, and what are the methods, what are the techniques, and at the end what to do with this data after the whole of this procedure. Like, you have collected the data, you have this knowledge. Even we might have some of the participants over here who are young researchers and they already know the way how to collect it. So, what to do with that data? We'll be discussing all of it in today's PPT. We'll start off with the introduction. It is a systematic procedure of collecting, measuring, and analyzing the data. So it is very much like visible from the first sentence. What is this work of the data collection? We're just discussing about the data collection right now. We'll move towards the language data collection after this, so you can resonate it quite well. So language data collection includes we have to collect, we have to measure, and then analyze the data that we have just collected right now using the standard validated techniques. So there are a number of techniques and methods that we use to make a kind of data validated. So these are all the techniques we're going to discuss today about. In most of the cases, data collection is considered to be a primary data. Okay, that doesn't mean that secondary data is not the type of data we're discussing about. Language data includes both primary data and secondary data, but in most of the cases, we use it as a primary data on the basis of which our research is done. So primary data is basically a sort of data which you collect on your own, where you are the person who is collecting that from the first hand. And the secondary data is something that has already been done. You can say a kind of a textbook or a kind of research or any type of data, a statistics that you can take available that is completely available on so many of the sites, or you can even say the databases. You can collect it from there. So we use secondary data to support primary data as well, but the main research that is done is on the basis of primary data. So in most of the cases, in majority of the researches, primary data includes the data collection process. It enables us to answer. So now what is the job of this data? It actually enables us to answer relevant questions, evaluate the outcomes. You can say the hypothesis that you have formed on the basis of your research, and whatever you are going to discuss about, it enables us to answer those relevant questions as well. And also it helps us to predict about the future possibilities of a research. Okay, so when you do a research, it never ends. Research in itself means research. You mean search of something that has already been done. So it is always in the chain of flux, it is always in the chain of continuation. So when we talk about the relevant questions and we evaluate the hypotheses and the outcomes, and also it helps us to predict the future, what else can be done in it. So you always talk about the implications, you always talk about the gaps that are left, so that the next person can carry forward that thing that you have already done, and whatever is left, the other person can carry it on. So why is this data needed? It helps us to present an accurate answer, a quality to our research, and honest data collection provides all of it. So while keeping pace with technology, I guess all of us are very much aware. Even right now, we're using technology to discuss about these data collection processes and other lectures that you are having from this platform or the other platforms. Whatever you are doing in today's world, also like to keep the COVID conditions in our heads. We know that technology has surpassed the level right now. We are like extremely dependent on the technology, which was not the case previously, because we had our offline modes, we had conferences, workshops. All of these things have come to an end because of the COVID situation, because we cannot collect people at one place. So we are heavily dependent upon technology, which is also proving a very nice phenomena at the end. Because previously, since we were not using it, doesn't mean it was thing that was a complete waste and we should not rely on it. Technically, right now when we see, we think the technology plays a very vital role in our lives. So same is the case with the data collection processes. So data collection is not something new. Okay, it is not something that is happening in today's world. And in the previous lives, in the previous worlds, we didn't have the technology, so we didn't have data collection as well. We had data connection with collection processes. We had a number of things that were being done in the previous in the previous worlds as well, in the previous societies as well. So that is the reason we are growing, and that is the reason for our evolution, because we are researching on the same things that are already been done and producing new things based on the previous researches. And in the context of technology, in the present times, we're using this technology to improve our lifestyles with the help of the data that we are collecting. So say for instance, you are working on some cases where people are using drugs. Now you're using so many of the techniques. Say you're using snowball sampling. This is one of the methods in which what happens is that you ask a person, like you go to some rehabilitation center and you ask a person like, okay, this is the case, you were a druggie, and what are the conditions now, how is the environment right now. And that person, because he was in a certain group, okay, he was hanging with certain people, so he knows other people as well. So that person is going to give you the example of another person, and from there you're going to go to the third and next and next. So this is how we collect the data on whole. And now we use technology for the same reason. So even on internet, you can use a person and you can just forward, say, a questionnaire. I'll be discussing it in the next slides as well. How do we use questionnaires and web surveys, online surveys? All these things are going to be discussed. So I will just briefing you about it. So what happens is that you'll be using technology. You can use snowball sampling on technology as well. You can ask one person, okay, do you know that person? Please forward it to them as well. So you can collect questionnaires from n number of people using technology. Okay, so now you can see these are the type. I have just collected this image from internet where it talks about the types of data. You see how many types are presented over here: geographical, cultural, scientific, financial, statistical, meteorological, natural, transport. So this does not even present us with the types of data. This presents us with the types of fields and the importance of data all across the world and all across the fields, and how much it helps each and every field across the world grow at the end. That is our main center to focus right now. So you see, in the transport sectors, we need data. We need, even to develop a car, you need the data, like how many cars, like if we are talking about one company, so how many cars were sold, say for instance, this is the data. Okay, if it was less, that means there was some issue with the vehicle. So you can just bring so many of the scientists into it, and the researchers can help them grow. They can help them to come up with the problems, and they can help them to come up with the solutions as well. So we go to the geographical areas, the boundaries, the territorial boundaries, and how are the terrestrial things happening, everything that comes under the climatic changes, and etc., etc. things. We talk about culture, how is the culture growing? We talk about scientific researches. All of these come under the category of data, and how is it evolving and how is it helping us to grow with time. So this very much proves us that data collection is important for most of the studies, and it is very much in use in today's world as well, starting from the previous times. So before collecting data, these I have just like jotted down three basic questions you need to ask yourself before collecting this data, getting into this process of data collection. You need to ask these three basic questions to yourself. Very easy. So first one is, what is the purpose of the study? Why are you doing this study? What is the outcome of the study? What is the fun of this study? Are you just interested in it, or is this going to bring some kind of change in the society, or any of the questions? Like, just form a question in your head and answer it to yourself. Like, what is the purpose of this study? Moving ahead, the second question is, what type of data is required? When you're done with the first question, when you have made yourself understand, like, what is the assignment, you know what is the assignment right now, you know what is the purpose of study. Now you need the type of data consideration as well. You need to know what kind of data will go over here and what type of data is just not required. You have to do the rough work before getting into this whole pool of knowledge. The third question is, what kind of methods will be required? The methods we'll be discussing ahead in the slides as well. But after the data collection, you need the statistical data. So you need to go in deep, and how many numbers you need, how many samples you need. All of these things are to be considered before the research starts, before you get into this procedure of data collection. Because otherwise, what happens is that it just becomes a hodgepodge kind of condition. You don't know what to do at the end. You're at the site, you don't know what to collect, you don't know how to interview people, you don't know what to ask people. So you have to be very well sorted before you begin with these methods. And further, we're going to divide it into the qualitative and quantitative data as well. So you break them into two parts. In the qualitative data, we have the color, the size, the quality, the appearance of the person. So all of these things come the subjectivity. It's more inclined towards subjectivity of the research. So when you are moving towards the subjective samples, it's always considered to be a qualitative study. Some things with qualities as such. And when we talk about the quantitative data, unsurprisingly, it includes poll numbers, percentages, then we have statistics, numbers. These are the representation of quantitative data. So I was also discussing it before in the first slide, like what is the difference between the primary data and the secondary data. So now that we're already clear with it, there are some of the examples given in this image. You can see on the right top side. Primary data collection includes surveys, interviews, opinion polls. So what happens is that you go to the fields. This is the primary data. This is the raw data that you're collecting on your own. You are creating this whole pool of knowledge for yourself by going there yourself. You as a researcher are present there, so it happens in front of your eyes. This is the first hand data that you have. So it includes the surveys, it includes the interviews, includes the questionnaires, everything that comes under the category of primary data collection. Then we talk about the secondary data collection, which I've already explained is a sort of data that has been done by somebody, and you are thinking of it to be of vital use to your research. So you are taking its help as well to prove your point at the end. So it will include company annual reports, sales records, internet informations, and as per your fields, you can have these knowledges all across. So regardless of this, field of research, you need data. And further, we are going to discuss. We're coming up to the topic of language data, the very proponent kind of thing that we are going to discuss today. We already know the importance of data. We've already discussed what data collection is, how to collect data. Will be informed in the next slides. But now we're going to discuss about the collection of language data. So we start with the information about it, about the language. So what is language? Language is universal and fundamental, and it is universal and fundamental to all human interactions. So all of us use languages to communicate. Humans use languages to communicate. So you see how important these languages are to us. So when we say a language is dying, something we were discussing beforehand only. So when we say languages are dying, that means a whole community at the end is dying. Their whole ethnicity, their whole you say personalities, the development, their traditions, their roots, all of them are getting dried up. Everything is dying, and which is a big loss at the end. You cannot consider it to be, something that, okay, fine, even if the language is dying, we can just go and use another language. No, that person was born and brought up in some particular place. And when that language dies, a part of him or her also dies along. So that is a huge, on a metaphoric level, that is a huge loss. And some people might not even consider it a huge loss because we are like moving towards the lingua franca. Say, for instance, we are discussing in English language, so we're thinking that we can use the language at the end. So each and every language is important and it's at its own place. Okay, lingua francas, we're using this language because we have to go global. When we go back to our nations, when we go back to our regions, I don't think everybody is able to talk in English. So how are you going to communicate with them? You need your language. And once you as a person are born who is not aware of your own regional language or any of the languages of your choice, what happens is that you're losing the touch with your ethnicity, you're losing a touch with your community at the end. That means you're losing a touch with yourself. So to prevent all of these things, we need to save languages, and for that we have to go to the fields. As a researcher, we have to go to the places and collect these languages, collect these data, so that we can define how beautiful the world is, how beautifully the people across the world are defining their cultures, their cities, their places, everything that they're doing across the world. So we need the language data for that purposes. So second point is that it is required to understand the world better. So we see, in order to understand the world, we are in the dire requirement, dire need of language data, because only then we'll be able to perform some kind of researches at the end. The next point is language data is made up of words. So in simple terms, okay, language data, I'll be explaining in simple terms. I won't be using some, hi-fi terms over here to explain what language data is. In layman words, it's just words, sentences, phrase, your act, speech acts, everything that you're doing that is considering, words in it. So you can even take it as a qualitative process where we have the text data in our hands, but all of the other, at the end we have words and sentences and phrases. But this does not mean that language data is only qualitative in nature. We have researches where we consider these words and quantify them at the end. How many times this word was being used in this language, how many times this marker just got used in this language, and we take out the percentage and we have the quantity at the end. And the quantity proves the importance of certain words or phrases, or how much these words or phrases are being used, or ironies, or anything, or satiric marks, anything that comes in between a language, and how many times the users are making use of it. That means that quality is dependent on these particular words, so we can always quantify these words as well. So it could help us achieve certain goals, like translation, pragmatics, phonetics, semantics, grammar, speech acts, morphology, and so many of the other linguistically abled, practically applicative things are there across the world. So now, when we talk about translation, translation is all about making your language go global, okay, or making it being heard by another people who don't know about it yet. Okay, so you as a translator, you are a multilingual or a bilingual, so you're producing your own language into somebody else's words. So that is obviously going to make it grow. You are producing the readers out of it. So this is the importance of the collection of data. And now moving ahead, we're coming up to the methods and the techniques. So what are the different types of methods that we have in order to, collect the language data? We've already discussed about data collection. We've already discussed about the language data. What are those? How to collect them? We're going to discuss now. So first thing that comes into being is the in-person interviews. This is considered to be the best kind of method, because what happens is that you are personally present there. You can ask a question proceeding to another question, and you can clarify your doubts as well. So it's very very much good when you are a regional speaker, you are the speaker of the language, and you are collecting your own language. So it is not bad for a person to go and collect your own language data, because your language can be endangered, your language can be endangered, and it might be dying, and nobody have ever heard about it. So you as a person should take this kind of thing to yourself, like I want to prove that my world exists. So you have to make your world known to the other people. How are you going to do it? You're going to collect the data, you're going to do your research, and you're going to make it available for the audience that didn't know about the other cultures as well. So this is also another thing that this does not mean that the people across the world are not interested in other cultures. So if it says, if you might be thinking like, okay, fine, I'm going to work on this language, right? So nobody wants to listen to my language. My own people are not interested in my language. That is not the case. That is not the case. People are actually, interested in other cultures, and we have seen so many of the examples. Like right now, literally in today's world, using the translation, we have dubbed movies, we have so many of the documentaries that are actually dubbed, and people are interested in knowing the other languages, in French, Italian, you say Persian, or any of the languages. We have Arabic series. We have so many of the dramas that are going across the world, and people are interested in other person's culture. No matter you belong from Europe, you're going to get interested in East as well. So, what is happening? All of these things are happening because of the translations. So, when we talk about in person interviews, you are literally present there. And when you meet the native, if you even are not the native, does not matter. You are a researcher, and when you go to the field, your job is to collect the data, the apt data for your research. There might be a case where you think that, this language, as a linguist, you think this language needs attention and nobody is giving it an attention. Might be a case that the speakers of the language are not into the field of studies, or they are just like long forgetting it. Nobody is there, so you have to take up the mark. You have to go and like collect the languages at the end. So when you go to that place, what happens is that you're going to ask one question. You're going to just prepare a draft beforehand. You have to categorize what type of questions you're going to ask, and what kind of answers you're expecting. And if you're not getting those answers, at the end, you have to clarify yourself. So in-person interviews in that course is considered to be the best quality for collecting the data. But the issue that comes with the in-person interviews is that it is hectic. And if you move out of the practice, if you're not doing it regularly, if you do not have enough samples, then the quality is going to get diverged. Okay, you're not going to have quality of the data, and the quantity is not going to be enough as well. So it is time consuming. Of course, it is going to be very time consuming, and it is going to be expensive because you have to go to some place, you have to live there, or you have to deal with so many of the people, or n number of things can happen. So it gets very expensive when it comes to the in-person interviews. You have to travel, you have to do all these things, go to different places. So the interviews are not going to happen at just one place. It's not like you're going to meet one person and he's going to answer you everything and it's done. No, you have to meet so many of the people across the world. So it's going to be time consuming, it's going to be expensive, but still, you are going to get the maximum amount of data from in person interviews. Now, next are the mail surveys. And there is on the fourth number is the web surveys. So there's not like from the web surveys, we can also include mail surveys into it. But mail surveys has its own prominence, and that is that you have to mail each and every person individually. Okay, so this is the explanation of the mail surveys, and I'll be coming up to the web surveys, like some of the differences that are present in the web surveys as well. Right now, we're discussing mail surveys. So what happens is that you can reach anyone and everyone without any barrier. Like you don't have to travel anywhere, you just have to sit in one spot, and like internet is in use and you can just send the mails to a number of people. But the problem is that it might have data collection errors. Why it happens is that since you are not physically present there, the person might perceive it in a certain way. Or say you sent the mail to 100 people, only 50 of them replied, because 50 of them just put it in they just like sent it to the junk box, or it just went to the spam box. You don't know what just happened with the 50 mails, and you only have 50 mails at the end, 50 responses. Out of those 15 responses, only 15 people were able to understand what you actually need and were able to give you the apt answer, and rest of them, 35 of them, they don't know what just happened. Okay, so these are the kind of things that happens when you are using the mail survey. So it gets problematic at the end. But still, we are using these methods. It's like you have to put a little bit of extra effort. Effort is needed. Effort is needed in each type of surveys. But it's just like with these errors, you have to take out the quality data out of it. Then comes the phone surveys. Phone surveys is also very time consuming because you have to call, and most of the times majority of the times I'd say you need a third person agency for it. And why is that? Because you need a third person agency for this, because you cannot call everybody now. You cannot. Same is the case with the in-person interviews. You know what happens is that many of the times people having big projects are literally just producing so many of the researchers at one time. Many researchers are going to the research fields and they are collecting the data simultaneously. Okay, at the end they are collecting the data at one spot. So the case with the phone surveys is that you cannot call everybody in one go, because you have such a big sample. You have to collect so many of the you have to create such big focus group that you have to collect the data from, that it gets problematic at the end to use the phone surveys in a very easy way, you'd say. So it becomes, but still we have high degree of confidence in both in-person interviews and phone surveys, because at least you are in connection with the person. You can ask the preceding questions, which is the main thing then when it comes to clarifying your own data, okay, to increase the quality of data. So, and also phone surveys, another pros when we talk about phone surveys is that you can reach out to maximum people. And then the problems with phone survey is that it is expensive, because you have to call them, you have to pay the bill, and even if you're hiring an agency, you have to give them some amount. So phone surveys gets expensive as well. And you cannot self-administrator, you cannot become the self-administrator at the end. You cannot be looking forward to each of the phone calls if the agency is hired, because you're not present there all across, right? Or some other researcher, or you say your assistant, you're asking them to collect the data. It becomes almost a secondary data for you, because you were not present there. When we talk about the web surveys, so just like I was discussing in the mail surveys, the issue is that not everybody would be able to decode it. But in web surveys, we also add questionnaires or other ways of asking questions from other people, because you can always go to towards the other social sites as well. So you might have seen that with the use of technology, we are having so many of the questionnaires that are forwarded to us by our friends only. Like one of my friends want this questionnaire to be get filled, so please fill it for us, so please fill it for her or him. So you're using these web technology to produce these questionnaires and like distribute it all across. But the problem is that not everybody has internet. And this proves that if somebody does not have internet, you will never be able to reach them. So that part of the society is literally at the negligent spot where you are never going to reach them, and you never know what just happened with them, and you would never know what are their opinions. So that is the sort of problem when it comes to the web surveys. But these are very much effective, because you can reach out to many of the people all across. Everybody is using internet, right? So many of the people across the world, like irrespective of the ages, they are using these internet facilities, and you can reach up to them with the help of the web surveys only. So mail surveys, I was considering it differently. I have given it a different spot, because as already explained that what happens with the world survey. But when it comes to the questionnaire, it's just like an objective questionnaire. I guess it becomes very easy for the people to decode it, for the people to understand it. So, what type of questionnaires can you form? Like we have another spot of for questionnaires as well. So it includes both offline and online questionnaires. So what happens is that when we are talking about the questionnaires, we can form a set of questions, say subjective and objective questions, or both, or like one of them completely subjective, completely objective, or completely subjective and objective mixed with it. So you can ask in objective questions, you can draw diagrams and ask like, what is it called? Okay, so you draw a diagram of say horse, and you ask the person in the particular language, what is it called? So you see 10 other people are calling it the same way, then okay, fine, that is your language data. You've collected a sort of word out of it. If you do not know what they say in it, and if you're just checking about the variations, so you can also take it from the same way. Or you can write the word, if you are the knower of the language, and if you know the word, so you can write the word. Do you use this word? How do you speak it? Do you speak it in this way? Okay, so that is the way you collect the data. That is the way you form your questionnaires, and this is very much apt for collecting data at the end. And the last one method out here is the observation, direct or indirect interaction. So this is a kind of ethnographic tool that is majorly used when we are a part of society. We go to some places and we are almost invisible in front of the people, not like literally invisible, but a sort of invisible in a way that people are not sorry, one second. Yeah. So what happens in this observation and direct and indirect interaction is that it is an observation. Okay. So you have gone to some cultural. So say a carnival is going on. So you are a participant over there, but nobody knows that you are a researcher. So that does not mean you are going to just derive something very explicit out of the whole community and bash them out in front of people. No, you are going to collect the quality data that is going to enhance their culture, that is going to talk about their culture, and you're going to observe it, or you can say you went with a friend of yours whose culture you're actually working on. So you went to that place with your friend, and your friend made you meet some other person. So you are just observing, like you're just almost invisible in the form of researcher. You are just a normal person in between those people, and you are becoming the part of that culture. You're becoming the part of the society. You are observing it. This can be like diachronic as well. Like we have so many the researchers who are like observing so many of the things and giving the information at the end to produce these beautiful researches that is actually helping the society at the end. So direct and interactions can also it can also include interviews as well. So we can have you can just go and talk to a person, like tell them like, okay, fine, I'm a researcher, I've been observing you from say past hour or something. So what are the things that are happening? For instance, I'm going to give you this example to make it more clear. Say for instance, you are studying about you're trying to collect the data about the child growth. How many words do they acquire in a particular given time? So you go to their playground and you listen to how these children are conversing among themselves, like how are they talking to each other. And once they're out of sight, you can go to their instructor, you can go to their teacher, whosoever is like at that time standing in their area, and you can go and ask the teacher, like, do they use these words daily, or is there any specific word that you have heard in your past time since you're here? What have you observed? You can take their observation, you can have interaction with them as well. And you can go to the kids as well, not to scare them off. You can just go them in a very friendly way, and you can ask them, you can talk to them, you can have conversation with them. So all of these things comes under the category of direct and indirect interactions. And you can see from the very right side, we have these two there are three images, but the two with some of the important information, which includes qualitative data collection tools and quantitative data collection tools. And we have online forums, groups, web surveys, online communities, in-depth interviews, face-to-face interviews, online, phone, mail. So this is applicable. These methods are applicable to both qualitative and quantitative data. And also there is like one more important thing, that is the focus groups. What are these focus groups? These groups are the groups that you are literally just going to focus on, the group that is considered to be the way towards your data collection process. Not everybody can give you the data, right? If I am to work on Hindi language, I can go and collect the data from the people who are speaking English, right? I have to go and look up to the people who are the users of that language, who are the users of the language in a particular region. Or if you are like studying something diasporic, like, okay, fine, the people who are living there are living somewhere else, and you have to study about that language or the evolution or the changes or anything that comes under the language consideration. You have to produce this focus group, the group that you are going to focus on. I guess this is very much clear. So moving ahead, we can see this image where we have phone surveys, online surveys, in-person interviews. And what happens in phone surveys is that high confidence is like high confidence means that means the data that we are collecting, we have confidence in it. And the need to hire an agency. The problem with that, which is that we need to hire an agency in some cases, but in other cases as well, we cannot call everybody. It gets so tiring, of course. You cannot just call everybody. So this is some of the cons when it comes to the phone surveys. Online surveys, you can self-manage it. You have an internet, you have produced the questionnaires, you have produced the mails, you know what to ask people, how to talk to people. You can just go and collect it. You have data accuracy because you're always there to check, but in some cases because you're getting less of the data at the end because you're not present there, it brings us to the negative point as well, because we have to time and again check it again and again, that is the data correct or no, is it resonating or no, because you're not literally standing in person to the next person. Then is the need of the internet. Just like we discussed, if the internet is not there, of course we are losing the touch with a big community out there, which is a huge loss. And it is a kind of thing that we cannot come up with a conclusion unless we're talking to them. So what is the way out of it? We can actually use the very big amalgamation, and here we can use bot technology and the in-person interviews. So you can go to the places, the people who do not have interviews, and the focus group, and you have made this focus group, and there is like one of the section that has internet and one of the section that do not have internet, or they don't use internet, say aged people, like people who are like completely aged and like away from technology. They do not want to use internet, they do not know what to do with it. So you can always go and like talk to them, you can call them, you can go with their in-person interviews, and you can just produce a beautiful outcome out of it. In person interviews, again, it is in depth, but it is time consuming because you have to take out your time. It's just not about the time that you are going to spend with the speaker. It is the time that you're going to invest in the case, like you have to reach them as well, so you are investing a lot of time into it. So in person interviews gets a bit time consuming. So now, like we discussed in the very beginning of our PPT, what happens is that even after we know how to collect the data, we don't know what to do with it. What are we going to do with it, right? Now the data is with me. What am I supposed to do with it? Just write it down on a book, like people are going to understand it? No, you have so many of the topics all across the world, and some of them explode. Okay, not everybody is working onto it. Like some of them are working on the linguistics. Might be a case like most of you must be knowers of this concept of linguistic studies. Like there is morphology, semantics, you can always study these things, grammar, but there are other aspects as well. So we're going to start with the very first, that is language documentation. So we know, and description. So documentation is, one of the most popular ways of preserving a language, of saving a language at the end. That is the main concern over here. We have to save the languages all across the world. We have to save the beauty of the world. We have to save the interactions of the world. We have to save the communication patterns of the world. So what is the way? We have, one of the ways is language documentation and descriptions. What happens is that we're gonna discuss about it a little bit. So first point is endangered languages are important to the speakers and worthy of being preserved. So it is not a thing that people who are using languages do not want their regional languages, or say native tongues, or some endangered languages. Speakers of the endangered language do not want their languages to be saved. Okay, they very much want it. So we have so many of the researches going on, and so many of the people saying, critics saying that even the endangered speakers do not want their language to be saved. So who is going to work for the language? They themselves. So if they're not interested in the language, that is the reason their language is dying. But that is not true, because context really matters at the end. So when we are talking about the languages, when we are talking about people, when we're talking about the growing culture all across the world, the globality, the global world, we're talking about so many things, the economic opportunities, so many things. Like the person wants to leave the place just to bring betterment in their life. So all of these things are affecting the endangered languages, and that is one of the reasons that the endangered speakers do not even realize that their languages are dying, and they are helpless. They do not know what to do. It's not their own predicament that, oh yeah, I find my language should die. No, that is not the thing. It's just like, because of the context, because of the opportunity loss, because of the changing world, the people have to move ahead, and they are at the loss of it. So as a linguist, you can always collect these languages, and these endangered languages are important as well. They are worthy of being preserved. They are they are important to their speakers, because they have their ceremonies in it, they have traditions, they have ethics, their communication patterns. All of it losing means they are losing their identity at the end. So endangered speakers very much want their language to be saved. So we as researchers, anybody who wants to do research in languages, should always go for these endangered languages, and even for the languages that you like. Okay, so next is documenting through audio. So how to document these languages? You can always use audios, video recorders, and you can then transcribe it. So transcription is literally the language for all of the linguists all across the world. So this is like using IPA, International Phonetic Alphabet. So when you're going to use IPA, what happens is that even I can speak in your language. Like I can use the correct pronunciation by studying this pattern of language. If you're using this pattern of language in your study, if you're doing a very particular study where you are proving the sounds, the patterns, the intonations, when everything is just getting into it, if the language is tonal and you are producing such features, you're talking about features of the language, you have to use IPA. That is how you're going to document the language in this consideration. Then what happens in language documentation is that you can describe a grammar, their features, their structure of a given language. Okay, you can actually produce a grammar book of your language, because not every language has a grammar rule book. Okay, so we have so many of the languages that are just being spoken, they're literally just on the spoken form, and we have nothing written about it. Nothing, like no literary works in respect of that language. Nobody knows how the grammar works. Nobody knows it's like a subject verb object subject object verb, like what is the pattern of the words, what is the pattern of the sentences, how are they using it, how many clauses are they using, how many phrases are they using. Nobody knows that. So these features, all of them, the structure of language can be accumulated in this form of documentation process. This is one of the ways of studying language. Next is discourse analysis. Okay, so this is not so explored area, I'd say. So when we talk about discourse, we actually discuss about something that goes beyond the sentence level. So it is just not, I say, present on the sentence. If I am saying this sentence, it is resonating to you in your own context. The context is built. Right now, we are here, we are in this IGP, from this IGP platform, we are having this discussion. You're very much aware that we are discussing about language data documentation. You're very much aware what is the context of this whole PPT, and that is the reason you're understanding what I am saying. So this is what, this is discourse. These are the mental images that are actually being formed in your head. Nobody gave you the sentence of understanding it. This was just an information that was spread out across, and you joined as per your own understanding. And you might have assumed and presumed so many things before coming over here, and now you're having the discussion about it. So these things, when we talk about language, when you are going and collecting some data all across, some from some society or some place or some region, you can go through this discourse analysis, which goes beyond the sentence level. How it goes beyond the sentence level? Because it's literally just stands in contrast to the general linguistic patterns, where we are studying about semantics, where we're studying about the meaning of the language, that is semantics. We're talking about syntax, we're talking about morphology, then phonology, sound system, and everything. This goes away from it. Okay, word out of the sentences, we're not talking about that. We're talking about things that are happening beyond the level that is actually in front of our eyes. So first thing is like discourse frames. What happens is that whenever you, the same contextual thing that I was discussing over here. So it is more toward, there is a more inclination towards the context over here. So when we talk about discourse frames, these frames, what happens is that you go to the first sentence and you understand, okay, what was the context of it? What does it actually mean? How did I form this meaning in my head? So all of these things comes under the consideration of reframing and making the frame. So I'm going to give you this one example from Orson Welles. He played this radio play which named The War of the Worlds. What happened in that? This was in a radio. This was a radio broadcast. So people who joined later, like after some time, they literally thought that the world is ending. So what is this? This is like out of context. They joined. It's just like out of context for them, because they didn't know that it's a radio play. They thought that it is a news, because what happens in radio? We have news, we have songs, we have plays, we have discussions, we have story times, we have so many things that are happening all across. So now, because they couldn't see what is happening, it is not a TV, so you won't know like if it is a play or something. Now what happened is that, because people were not able to decode the context of it, they literally thought that the world is going to end, and it created a panic across the world, across these beings. Okay, so this proves that without the context, the meaning does not exist. So for this, you can always go, and if you're collecting some tales, okay, you're collecting some stories from one of the languages, you can see what type of frame is being formed all across, and you can study on it. Then another context builder is, we have discourse markers. So words like oh, but, so, and all of these are discourse markers. So it does not have to mean literally only. You just do not have to go with the dictionary meaning only. These actually act as context builders inside, a kind of research. So, we see like this and is like an additive marker. It is just used for a kind of expression that we already discussing, and we're going to use and something else is left. We are using but something contrary is left. But no, and is used in so many of the sentences we use to begin a word. Okay, we use well and then we end it. Like so many of the things, like nothing is given all across, and so many of the words that you make sense of through these discourse markers only. Then we have speech acts, of course, like see, we're going to use this speech act in the airplane. Okay, please fasten your seat belts. Okay, now what is that? You know what is happening, you know this is speech act, and you know how to work according to it. So another one is like, I now pronounce you man and a wife. So you know the person are actually wait, so nobody is doing anything over there, but these things are related to another things, the context that is all around built across. Those things could be studied, and it can actually add a sense, it can add meaning to your to the type of research you are having at the end. Another next part is the linguistic analysis, the much awaited linguistic analysis, which, because we're talking about languages so far. So you can first of all see the image, which talks about sounds, like for phonology. Then we have phonological analysis, morphological, lexical, syntactic, semantic, pragmatic, which includes structures like sounds, phonemes, morphemes, words, syntactic structures, representation structures, communicative intentions. All of these things, if somebody does not know about these, all of these things develops or forms a language. These includes the structures of the language, and you can study about these things, the unexplored languages that are dying out there. You can always pick up those languages and study these things in them, because this is going to be present in there. Of course, if you're having a language, of course there's going to be sound, there's going to be clicks, there are going to be so many of things, and you can study all of these things in a language using the linguistic measures. Linguistic analysis also exceeds when we come to these structures, and that is one of the things is like spatio-temporal setting. What happens in spatio-temporal setting is that you're discussing, for instance, about the space and time. So you got a text, okay, you collected a tale, you collected a story, and now what happens is that the story is going to talk about, okay, the person was sitting at the okay, I'm going to give you this example. So, in most of the East cultures, there is a tradition, or there is this culture, you can say this is a practice or a ritual of getting early in the morning. Early in the morning means getting up in the dawn, okay, or as early as the sun. So, what happens is then when you're reading a text of a language where a person is getting up early in the morning, so how would it flow? The person got up in the dawn and went to clear up his chores, okay. This will prove a certain amount of time to you, and this will also be very much focusing on this particular tradition that we are talking about, particular culture that we're talking about. So we can have a number of examples all across the regions, something particular that they do, and unintentionally, that even the writer or the author or the folklore people do not know, they are intentionally adding it. It is all unintentional, and you just add it into the bean, into the text. You can take these, I'd say, signals or milestones from the text itself, and you can just bring them out and show the prominence of the language, what is being used time and again, and how important is that to that particular community or the person. Same is the case of space. You're going to talk about some place, you're going to talk about some beautiful scenery out there, something that discusses about the speciality of a place. So all the spatial temporal settings actually present us with the intrinsic attributes of the particular language. Then are presuppositions. Presuppositions are basically the assumptions that you make before, after reading a sentence, or after reading something, after understanding something. So whenever you read a word, whenever you read a sentence, whenever you read a phrase, a clause, something goes in your head. If I say like, I got up early and thought of climbing the mountain. Now, your mountain, my mountain is going to be different. But as a speaker, I do assume that you know what a mountain is, and you also presume that the person is going up to the, you say mountain. Okay, so now what are the further I'd say, what would be the further presumptions? Say, for one of the presumption would be, it is going to be a difficult task. The person has to get up. There has to be agility. The person has to be, sportsman in their nature. Okay, not everybody can climb, a mountain. So there are so many other things that can happen in that one sentence that I've just spoken over here, and these all things comes under the considerations of presuppositions, and you can study about these presuppositions in the given material you have. Then we have the topic words. Topic words are literally the point of discussion. So if you're saying there was a king and there was a queen, both lived happily ever after, okay, this is the end of the story, for instance. The king and his queen. King is the topic of the discussion. Okay, so if we say there was a king and he had 7 queens, all of them were very nice except for one. Okay, so now we're talking about the topic king and his subsequent information that is going to be discussed in the future. So even if the word king is used at the end of the story, you would know the king is the topic. The king is the person we are discussing over here. It does not matter which king, but the king is there. The royal is included in it. So it actually presents us with the core point of discussion. And we have discourse topics, we have sentence topics. Sentence topic is something that is visible to you. The king is visible to you. And if you're discussing about the king's life, the discourse topic is going to get changed. Why? Because you're talking about king and something, and that becomes a discourse topic. That is by mentally you are understanding what is actually happening. So this is the context for the topic words. You can study the topic words in the given languages. It can be anything. It can be a situation. It can be an incident. It can be an accident. It can be an event. It can be a character as well. The subject of the sentence. These all can be topic words, and you can study these topic words in your study as well. Now we're going to talk about the relative clauses. These are, as we all know, these are antecedent by a relative pronoun. So we use which, who, that. All of these are like what is that? Relative clauses that we use, and relative clauses can also be studied. Now, all of these information that I'm giving you, you can use it in a qualitative way, and you can use it in a quantitative way. A qualitative way is very much understandable because you're using the subjective approach, you're understanding situations, you're defining the culture, you're doing a number of things in the qualitative way. But when it comes to the quantified way, you can always do what? You can see how many discourse markers are being used, which discourse marker is being used the most, how many times. If you say but is a kind of discourse marker that is used by these people in their day-to-day languages. So you're going to collect the data, you're going to see, you can just collect the conversations of the people, and you can write it down, you can take the audios, videos, everything that you can do, the ways I've already explained. So now what happens is that when you have all of these things in your hand, you can see how many times the person used discourse markers. Say but was used for the most times, you take out the percentage of it, and it proves that this community is heavily dependent upon the but as discourse marker. Or you can also see, are the discourse markers being used to the maximum time, or the relative clauses are being used to the maximum time, whichever is used. So you can always quantify these things as well. So these are some of the things that you can do while doing this study. And also another important thing is translation. Without translation, nothing is possible when we talk about languages. Okay, because of course, I as a speaker won't know so many thousands and millions of languages all across the world. I don't know each and every language. Of course, if you are making this kind of research, if I'm producing a kind of research, I have to make it understandable to the other world as well in one of the languages, so that even if you produce it in one language, the person of the another language can, again spread it in their own language, and that is how the chain can be developed. But translation is important. First and the foremost thing, it helps in making a language available to larger set of audience. And it's just not for the language that is endangered. It can also popularize a language as well. A language is almost already popular can also become more popular with the help of the translation. It is a pedestal for growth and representation of regional text at global level. So it is just regional text does not need to be, be subdued to just one city or a country. You can just like go global with the help of the translation. There was this one of the critic who said that it does not produce speakers, but at least the readers of the other language. No matter if I'm not able to understand in another language, okay, I am not able to speak, I am not able to use French, but at least I am a good reader of their language. I at least understand their culture. I know something about their culture by reading all the translated texts I have translated, the researches I have, and I can always study their patterns, their structures through the linguistic studies with the IPAs and the translations with it. Also, in order to maintain the faithful balance between the source text and the target text, this point actually resonates to one of the things that I had to mention and I almost forgot, but it is that the metaphrase is, not possible. The literal translation, it just gets hindered in between. You cannot have a literal translation from one language to another due to the same reason, that is that if I am a speaker of, you say, Hindi language, so if we are following a pattern, the another language might not use the same pattern. So SVO and SOV, the pattern just changed. Okay, subject, verb, object, and it just changed. So you have to arrange that pattern. It is not advised. Like if I am following this SVO pattern, it is not advised. If the other person understands it in SOV pattern, I am giving them the SVO pattern only. That is going to just like not produce a good research. It is just not going to be acceptable to the other person. So it is going to be what? the mission just failed. So we're not here to fail the mission. Also the footnotes. So how can you help yourselves with these problems, like the literal translation? Sense to sense, of course, is there. You have to produce a sense to the other person, but there's one of the key features that you have to always keep in your head whenever you are translating something, and that is that when you are having a text in your hand, you do not have to exceed the words of the given text. So if say there's a sentence of 10 words, that does not mean you're going to explain that translated into 50 words. You have to come up to 10 to 11 words only, so that the integrity is maintained. Also, to get over with this concept of you say literal problems, you can always have footnotes, glossaries, critical comments, which is just explaining something that is, some of the words are not present in another language. So you can always use these glossaries, critical comments, footnotes, extra information about your source text in the target language. Now, coming up to the conclusion, so we can see that how language data actually helps in the linguistic growth. Linguistic growth means human growth at the end. Data increases data, the language data actually, or any sort of data actually helps us to increase the reliability, accuracy, and validity of the research. These are the basic things that we need when we end up with research. These are the things that we need as a researcher, because at the end, this is going to help us, grow our society at the end. It helps us save endangered languages, something that we were discussing all across the PPT. The translation can help us popularize the language by making it available to global audience. So you can always use a critical comments, etc., to produce the more knowledgeable set of the languages that you have towards the other language. Studying the structure of languages can help vivid cultures grow across the world. So the integrity, the harmony, the information, everything can help us grow with the help of these language data collection and the processes at the end. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am. Please unmute your microphone.
Okay, sorry. Okay, well, once again, that's amazing presentation, Mom, and thank you so much for
Thank you
the
so much.
captivating topic that you just have shared. And we learned a lot from the knowledge that you just shared to us. So for
Thank you.
me, my takeaway from the sessions are the following. We have here the importance of data and research. We all know that uh, data is a primary and the most important step in research, which enables us to answer the relevant questions and outcomes on our study. And having a data that is accurate and honest, that's assure quality based on that what you have just shared. And you also shared to us what are the methods in having the research, specifically in language. We have here in-person interviews, you have the mail surveys, phone survey, online survey, and so on and so forth. And so there are lots of techniques that you just have shared, and the knowledge also is very informative. Thank you so much, Mom, and see you in the Q&A.
Thank you.
So, before moving on to our quiz competition, let me remind you again to please support us by sharing, tagging, commenting, and mentioning your friends with our in our webinar. For the certificates, just click the link provided in the comment field or just log in directly to our website www.edoigp.com. Codes are required to obtain the certificates, and this is after our live broadcasts. And also, don't forget to celebrate by IGP by checking in and recommending IGP to your friends and community. So again, let's explore together and grow together with IGP webinar training. So again, viewers, let's watch this video with our quiz competition. Thank you again, ma'am. So we are inviting you all. Okay. So these are the different persons who joined our quiz competition tonight or for this webinar. So to join with this competition, you can log into www.slido.com with a code with all capital letter IGP quiz, or just click the link in the comment box and you will be guided on how to join on this quiz competition. So we have here the different participants for the quiz. We have Corazon Quintana. We have Cristiano Di Candido. Rodolfo. Igor Aghabala Yeva. We have Marie Gold Alog. Eugene. We have Dennis James. We have Carmela. We have Ryan Animo. Veneranda A. Jordan. We have Marivic Lavisilia. So come on, guys, join our competition with the code all capital letter IGP quiz. And remember, you can get a certificate if you will be in the top 10. So only the top 10 will have the certificate for the quiz competition. Come on, join us. So we have here Elias A. Austria, Romel Hernandez, Loretta Cabasi, Marie Gold Alog. We have John Paul Corsanes, Romel Lourdes Montuya. We have Leia Faconla. Okay. There are many who joined with our quiz tonight. Okay, let's start with the quiz. So the first question, which of the following are primary instruments for collecting informations? Is it surveys, interviews, and focus groups, or literature review? Okay, click your answers now. So we have 98/2%. And the correct answer for this question, well, yes, surveys, interviews, and focus groups. So will now proceed to the second question. Okay, so for this question, we have in top one Igor Agha Balayeva, and followed by Rumel Aquino, and followed by Firuz Akbarov. These are the leading in the first question. So the second question, what are the two types of data? Is it statistics and percentages, or quantitative and qualitative data? Click your answers now because you only have few time to answer. Okay. So among the participants, there are 95% answered quantitative and qualitative data. So the answer for this question is okay. So for the second question, in the top one in our leaderboard, we have Igor Aghabalayeva and followed by Rumel Aquino and Feroz Akbarov and then Rizahi, the fourth, Farella Rizahi, and the fifth. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Which one of the following is easier and cheaper to obtain? Is it primary information or the secondary information? And what will be the answer? The answer is secondary information with 34% get the correct answer. Who will now leading on this question? Okay, on this question we have Nico, then is Miro. We will wait for the fourth question. The fourth question for tonight's session is language data is made up of words, sentences, phrases, and comes under the category of is it qualitative and quantitative data or qualitative data? Click your answers now. Okay, the correct answer for this question is qualitative and quantitative data, with 16% got the correct answer over 84%. Let's see who will lead in our leaderboard. Okay, leading we have Marie Gold Alog, followed by Joel A. Bernasor, and then Romel John C. Aquino, and Iglantina Shihu. So these are leading for this question. Let's wait for the next question. Okay, so here is the question. In the process of data collection, who is led by a moderator and brought together to discuss the issue? Is it focus group or the researcher? The answer for this is okay. That's 62 over 38%. Okay, the answer is the focus group, with 62% get the correct answer. Let's wait who will lead in the leaderboard. Okay, so leading is Joel A. Bernazor, and followed by Romel John C. Aquino. Then we have Iglantina Shihu. Then Nico then is Miro. Okay, the next question. Data collection problems that require prompt action include: is it fraud or individual misconduct or a questionnaire? And the answer is fraud and individual misconduct, with 50% over 50%. It's equal. Who will now leading? Okay. Again, we have Joel A. Bernasor and Nico Dennis Miro and then Rumel John Aquino. The seventh question. Which one of the following is time consuming and expensive? Is it in person interviews or the web or online surveys? You can choose now your answer because you only have 40 seconds left to answer. Three, two, and one. So that's 82% over 18%. Okay, the correct answer is in-person interviews with 82% get the correct answer. Okay, top one for this question we have Joel A. Bernasor, followed by Romel John C. Aquino. That's in our seventh question. We will wait for our next question, and that is the eighth question. Okay, the eighth question for tonight's session is the analysis of language that goes beyond the sentence is called discourse analysis or data analysis. The answer is discourse analysis with 74% get the correct answer over 26%. Okay, and let's watch on our leaderboard. We have Joel A. Bernazor. Oh, let's wait. Let's okay. The ninth question. The linguistic term for discourse marker active clauses. The correct answer is discourse markers. Okay. Leading in the leaderboard, we have Joel A. Bernazor and Romel John Aquino. And Nico then is Nero. We, we will now move on to the last question for this quiz competition. A thing that tacitly assumed beforehand at the beginning of a line of argument or course of action is called presuppositions or prepositions. What will be the answer for this question? Okay, that's letter A, that presuppositions. It's 78% over. Okay, so these are the top 10 for these quiz competitions. Congratulations to them. Let's give them a virtual round of applause. So we have here the top one. We have Joel A. Bernazor, got 10 over 10. And then top two, we have Rumel John C. Aquino. And then the top three is Nico Dan Ismiro. Top four, we have Marites in Rivera. Top five is Iglantina Shiho. Top six, we have Corazon Quintana. Top seven, we have Firuz Akbarov. And then top eight, we have Nico Dennis Miro. And the top nine, we have Lourdes Montoya. And in the top 10, we have Dr. Rajesh, uh, how to pronounce this? Sodhakar. So again, congratulations to all the winners for our quiz competition for tonight. So again, let me remind you, do not forget to tag and share and mention your friends in the comment box and share also to our community. Okay, let's proceed with our question and answer version after a short video. Okay, welcome back, Mom. So this
Thank you.
is our question and answer portion. So to all the viewers, if you have any clarifications or any, if you want to ask question to Mom Viveka, you can type it in the comment box. Okay, we have here from Sir Firoz Akbarov. What if the language does not have the script for preservation? How can the data collection occur?
Hmm. So, very nice question, I'd say. The person is asking if Feroz Akbarov is trying to ask what if the script is not present. So, there might be some of the script that is being used for a particular language. If not, use whichever script you want. It does not matter. For instance, I'm going to give you this example of script. There is this Dogri language that I am working on. Its main script was Takri script. That is what we call it. But due to the evolution of the language and due to other circumstances and contexts that actually happened across the times, we have shifted up to Devanagari script. So we are not using Takri script anymore. So even if the people who are doing the research in today's time, how are they using that language? We are using simply the Devanagari script, which is actually a script for our Hindi language as well. So there might be some of the substitute for your own particular language. So if the script is not available, use the script that you're using right now for the other languages of your own region. Thank you.
Okay, very well said, Mom. Let's wait for the next question. Okay, the next question is coming from Ricky Montano. Can you cite advantages and disadvantages of qualitative research and quantitative research?
So, Ricky Montono, we all know that nothing is perfect. So, whenever we talk about qualitative and quantitative studies as well, we have both the pros and cons with it. What happens in qualitative research is that it is subjective. Now, when we talk about being subjective, that is that we are giving our own perceptions at the end, which can hinder the result at the end. So, you cannot completely rely on something that is completely subjective. Rather, when we go towards the quantitative side, which has numbers and statistics, and you are having something very factual, the problem is that you cannot define the subjectiveness with the help of the objectiveness. Okay, the emotions can't be quantified, the culture cannot be quantified. So, these are some of the negative points when it comes to the qualitative research and the quantitative research. But while we talk about the advantages, of course, researches are categorized into these two types. So, of course, it has to be advantageous in its nature. qualitative research helps us come to the conclusion when we have something subjective going on, just like I explained. When you're talking about the emotions, when you're talking about the culture, when you're talking about the ethnicity, traditions of some society or some culture, you need the subjectiveness in it. You cannot just tell 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. You cannot do that because that is not how things work. So advantages in qualitative research is that you get the clear image of what is actually happening in the particular place that you are discussing in your research. And in quantitative research, you're having the apt percentages that is going to help you evolve as a researcher, and your research is going to help the society at the end. Childbirth rate, the death rates, the societal rates, all these things are quantified. That gives us a sort of ratio at the end that we have in our hand, on the basis of which we produce the other researches. So these are the advantages and the disadvantages of these two researches. And we also have instances of people using both in one research, which also produces a quality kind of outcome where you're using both qualitative and quantitative measures at the end. This is called kind of mixed research. Thank you.
Yes. Well explained, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question is coming from Dr. Rajesh Wachter.
Wakachuri,
Okay,
I
what
guess.
is
Wakachuri.
Wachter? Okay, thank you for that, ma'am. Okay, what is the scope of language translator?
Okay, so translation, as I've already discussed, that how global can a translation go, and language translators are important in almost all the spheres in today's world. Even the governments, when they are exchanging their conduct, see, in our country, I guess in India, we have n number of languages. So even when we have to talk to somebody who is like living next to a state, we have to use translations. The north and south, like people in south are using different languages, and north are mostly using Hindi languages, but the medium is what? English. So we're using English language in India as well. But when we come across the another agencies, like two presidents meeting with each other, okay, both of them, two prime ministers meeting of different countries are meeting each other, both of them don't use the same language, right? A Korean prime minister and Indian prime minister do not speak each other's language. So the translators work comes there. The translator work is to bring their language to the global culture. It is to help the other people, converse with each other as a result. So the language translator is not just about translating, it is also about conversing at the end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Do we still have another question? Okay, another question from Sir Feroz Akbarul. Has pandemic affected the modes of data collection in any way? If so, why?
Yes, of course. I've already discussed in the PPT as well. See, this question is actually in today's frame very important because the pandemic is just not letting people do what they were doing since so many years. Like data collection has definitely been affected because the gathering cannot happen. And if we cannot go and meet the people out there, how are we going to collect the data? So that is why we are relying so much on the technology. That is the only way of means we have. We are using the videos, we're using webcams to reach out to people, but there is only a way out of it. Okay, so if cannot be done in person, so the people who have internet connections, we can have a web call with them. We can, if the person is not having internet, you can just do a phone call to them. So it is, of course, it is taking much of the person abilities right now, because even the people, even the researchers are not so well versed with the technology. You have to learn technology first and then go and collect the data. So pandemic has affected these modes of collection where the in person, first of all, the in person, the most important concept that we have, the in person interviews, the in person interactions have completely ended, because human to human touches, of course, you cannot stand in front of a person for more than 5 minutes. I guess that is like considered to be dangerous, and you cannot go to other people's places and like knock the doors and tell them to please answer our questions. Nobody's going to open the door for you. So there are a number of challenges that are coming across, but researchers are still fighting with it. They're using the technology, they're using questionnaires, web surveys, online surveys to come up with these
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for that
thank you.
wonderful answer, that question. Okay, the next question is coming from Mom Marie Andre Palon. What will you do if questioned in English and answers in native tongue? How do you resolve interpretation of data, especially in a descriptive questionnaire? Thank you.
Okay, I'm not able to understand the question. What will you do if questions in English and answers in native tongue? Uh, I think she's trying to ask that if the question is in English and if the answer is in native tongue, okay, so how will you decode the meaning of that word? Okay. If that is the way I'm perceiving it. Okay, so if you're saying if I go and ask someone the question in English, if the person answers in the native tongue, how am I going to decode it? First of all, you are going to, when you develop these focus groups, you have to look at your own limitations as well. If I am a speaker of, say, English language and I do not know the other language, I won't go to the people who do not know the other language as well. So when I will go to somebody of a regional language speaker, I myself am a regional speaker. So if I'm writing, first of all, if that is the thing, even the person is not going to understand the question, right? So if the person does not understand English, how will they answer? First of all, you have to form that question in their language so that they can answer to you in their language. For that, the thing is, you have to be the regional speaker. Next point is, if you are asking a question in English and if they are answering in native tongue, that is what you need the answer in native tongue. That is your language data. Then if you are a regional speaker, you can translate it into English on your own. If you are not the regional speaker, you can take the help of some native speaker who also knows the English language, and you can translate the word with the help of that person, and then you can form the language data. See, linguists are working all across the world, and when I talk about linguists, they are not all knowers. They do not know all the languages, but they are collecting the data. They are transcribing it in IPA as it is. Then they are searching for the translations. If they do not know it, they're taking somebody's help and they are translating them and presenting in front of the world. It is not necessary for you to be a regional speaker to work on some regional language. You can be the speaker of another language and you can work on the regional language as well. Thank you.
Okay. The next question, Mom, is coming from Sir John Paul. So, are there known global organizations tasked in preserving endangered language?
Yeah, there are so many of the organizations all across the world. We have organizations like even your own governments, even your own countries are going to save it. But the issue is not about the organizations. Of course, organizations are going to be there, but not every organization can reach up to every language. For that, the researchers have to come into being. Now, the organization's job is going to be save the languages that is known to them. Of course, they are going to save some major languages, but not every language. There are so many of the languages, even the small communities are speaking these languages. Now that organizations won't go to that, there might be a case that the organization might miss that community. Who is going to look after those communities? So as a researcher, if you are a native speaker of the language, you know that language exists. It is your job. If you want to take the help of the organizations, you can reach out to them and tell them, okay, this is the problem and this is the language we are discussing over here. And okay, my battery is about to die. Yeah, so this is how the endangered things are to be preserved. Global organizations are there, but as a researcher, it is your job as well to go and preserve the languages all across the world. Even at least the languages that you know are dying and need the help right now. Thank you.
Okay,
Just a second.
another question, Mom, from Sir Firuz Akru. What are the cheapest ways of data collection that we can use in remote areas?
In remote areas, one of the cheapest way is that you go as a person. That is the only cheapest way you have when you go to a remote area, because you cannot reach up to them with the help of the internet facilities, because it is a remote area for a reason. Now when you go to one remote area, you take the in-person interviews, and when you reach there, that is the only expense you have. Of course, it is going to be very expensive if you're going to go to many of the remote areas. There is no way out of it. But as a person, if there is one remote area out of your focus group, there are not going to be a number of remote areas, right? Out of these focus group, you can use a mixed kind of research technique, where you can take the internet surveys, and when one of the community is left, you can go for the in-person interviews. It's going to be very less expensive as compared to all of these in-person interviews at the end. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Another question from Sir Ricky Montaño. We have, when can we say that a language can be a barrier in research? Or so, can it affect the result of the study?
Yes, so language can be a barrier in search is your own language. So if your own language is affecting the data that you have collected, then language is going to be a barrier. Okay. Otherwise, the language is not going to be a barrier because that is your primary data in your hand. So if you are using, see, this was one of the examples that I was giving towards to you during that translation topic. If I am a speaker of a SVO pattern, subject, verb, and object, if I am translating it into SOV pattern, I have to be very particular that I am translating it into SOV pattern only. Otherwise, the other speaker would not be able to comprehend. But now, because of my language being SVO, if I am producing the result in SVO only, it is going to be a hindrance. This language is going to become a barrier for the results. Okay, so when we talk about the language barriers, it is your own language that is going to affect the results. So do not let that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Another question from Teacher Neil Vlogs. When can we say that a language can be a barrier in research? If
I
so,
guess this is the
it's the
same
same.
question.
It's the same question.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
there's some glitch or something, right?
yeah. So I think this question is already answered a while ago. Okay, so Ma'am Viveka, I think those are the questions in this
Okay,
session. So again, no, thank you so much for
thank you
sharing
so
your
much.
time and for sharing your valuable knowledge with us. We learned a
Thank you so
lot
much.
from you, Ma'am. Thank you so much for
Thank you so
the
much.
information you just have shared and the knowledge that we learned from you, Ma'am. Thank you
Thank
so
you. Thank you
much.
so much. It was wonderful being here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you all.
Thank Okay, to all the viewers tonight. So this is the code for the program that we have. The code is IGP3673. You need this code, for you to get your e-certificate. So in getting your certificate, just log into our website www.eduigp.com, or you can click the link in the comment box. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching in today's session. To all the knowledge seekers, teachers, students, and all who are viewing, who are with us tonight, thank you so much. And hopefully, you learn something new with the topics that we have. Again, please spread the information to your friends and community. And don't forget to collect your e certificate and check in with IGP. Thank you so much, guys, for watching us and for being with us until the end. We hope to see you all again in our next webinar. Thank you and good night in the Philippines. Again, thank you so much for being with us. Don't forget the code that we have or in today's program with IGP 3673. With the code, you can claim your e-certificates anytime.